Is it cheaper to drive in Japan or use the JR Rail Pass? Short answer, it cost us about $100 more and saved us just about 6 hours worth of travel time on our trip last fall. And if we had skipped the ferry from Beppu to Shikoku, it would have been about the same price and still saved about 4 hours in time. For anyone else who's still here, let's get into the details and figure out whether or not your trip is going to be cheaper if you go on the trains and use the JR Rail Pass, or if it'll be cheaper for you to rent a car. We all know in Japan they're super famous for their trains and they've got a really amazing public transport system. What if I told you there are entire cities in Japan that don't have trains? What do? How do you get to those cities if there's not going to be a train to actually get you there? You're going to take a bus, you're going to sit on a bus all the day, sit on the road trying to wait until that bus gets there, and then sit on that bus until it finally makes it to the place you're trying to get to. It's just kind of a pain. It really is really annoying. And then you're adherent to bus schedules and timetables, and it can be difficult enough for people to get used to the trains and figure out how to use trains to get where they need to be, much less a bus if you're going to try to go someplace a little off the beaten path. Not to mention that either buses or taxis are really going to add a lot of cost to your trip. So if you plan on going somewhere that trains aren't going to take you, that bus may not be the cheapest, and that taxi definitely is not going to be a cheap way to get there. Maybe someone suggested to you, hey, why don't you drive while you're there and see what it's like? And that's probably why you've come to me. But now you're wondering, how much is my rental? How much is gas going to be? What about toll roads? I hear everything's tolled over there. How am I going to do that?
And what about parking? Am I going to have to pay for parking everywhere I go to?
And you just start adding these things up, and it can be kind of daunting and scary, but let me tell you, it is well worth driving. So I'm here to break it down for you. We've made 2 trips to Japan in which we rented a car, and I've spent way too much time on Japanese websites that I can barely read, trying to figure out what the cost of toll roads are going to be and determine whether or not we should use a pass or if we should just pay for the tolls or what have you. A few disclaimers. When I say we took a trip and rented cars, that means there's at least 2 of us in this car. So that means automatically any train or bus ticket is going to be doubled, whereas the car can hold us without actually charging any extra. So if you can pack more people into a vehicle, you're going to definitely save on cost overall if you're traveling with more and more people, because every extra person is an extra set of train tickets and bus passes that are not going to have to be purchased. So you're just going to keep on saving money the more you divide it up, the more people you get in there. If you are a solo traveler, your time savings would have to be incredible, I feel, in order to justify renting a car versus taking trains and buses. Second disclaimer, a little bit simpler. If you're going to be staying in metropolitan areas like Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Nagoya, Nara, even up in like Kinosaki Onsen, as far away as it may feel, those have very good access by trains, and the public transportation when you're in those cities is going to be more than adequate to take care of your trip. The hassle of having to drive a car around, even if it ends up being cheaper, may not be there just because you're trying to find parking in a more metropolitan area. So stick to trains and buses and taxis if you are sticking to more cityscapes as opposed to heading out into the vast countryside. Third, I usually dislike the JR Rail Pass because the timing can be such a pain in the butt. They only come in 7, 14, or 21 day increments. And sometimes we've had trips where we've needed a Shinkansen at 8-day intervals. And the pass for 14 days is just not cheaper than just paying for the Shinkansen there and back. So if you can plan your trip around having a 7 or a 14-day interval, it could save you a ton of money by using the JR Pass. My recommendation is if you're not going to be on a Shinkansen twice a week, then don't worry about the JR Pass and just pay for your trains. The second reason I'm not a huge fan of the JR Pass is just that, again, not all of Japanese cities have amazing trains that the pass will work on. And even some cities, like when you're in Osaka or Tokyo, the JR Pass only works on JR train systems. And especially in Tokyo, the Tokyo Metro lines can be a lot more useful than the JR trains alone. So you're going to pay for a pass and still pay for trains. It just doesn't seem like a smart idea to me. One small annoyance with the JR Pass is just how you use it. Every time you get to a train gate, there's all of these beautiful styles lined up, and you just go through and you can beep your fast passes, but not with the JR Pass. JR Pass is like a physical stamped piece, and you've got to go to one side or the other to the station manager and have him take a look at it, and they look at it, make sure that the date's still within the time period allotted, and then they wave you through and you get to continue on. It adds a little bit of hassle every time you board and exit a train, which when I'm in Japan, time is money. It's definitely something that I need to go places, I need to get things done. So I don't like having to add that little hiccup in my travel. Now I'll start getting into the numbers. Let's talk initial cost. With the JR Rail Pass, you have to pre-purchase your rail passes. For the two of us, that means we're going to be spending $534 on 2 7-day passes, because we were able to condense this trip into that 7-day window that I was just talking about. Initial cost on the rental is going to be a little different depending on where you're located. Here in America, we need to get our international driving permit, and that's just a simple $20 fee down at AAA. A little bit extra if you need to have your passport photos taken, but that's not too bad. Usually go get some $10 passport photos taken and then head on in for your international driver's permit. Next, we need to get our rental. So we found a website called easyrentcars.com, and they had a killer deal. It was just $273 for 7 days to rent a mini car. And when I say a mini car, I mean one of those yellow plate, 66 horsepower, strict size requirement, beautiful little cube-shaped vehicles. Specifically, we had ourselves a Nissan Rooks, and oh man, was it a freaking dream come true. I've always wanted to drive a K car in Japan, and it was just so fun to finally be in one of these little tiny boxes just flying down the freeway. And part of the reason I'm putting this video together is for all the people who, when I was asking, hey, can I fit my luggage in X car or Y car, were telling me, don't get a K car. You're not going to keep up with anything on the freeway. You're going to blow it up. It's not going to work right. And me knowing that cars work and having driven in Japan in a full-sized car and seen the K cars come flying past me on the freeway, knew that they were full of crap. And so I wanted to make this so everybody knows that they work really well. And that Nissan is one of the most fun K cars I've ever seen or gotten the chance to drive. It's huge and square, and when you get inside it, I mean, let's just go. I've got footage from the trip. Just play the reel.
How much do you love this car, Blaine?
I love it so much.
Why do you love it so much?
I can't tell you why.
What?
There's not like a good reason. It's like a version of, it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than it is to drive a fast car slow. So it's like, it's got that excitement of like a go-kart, where it's like, it's so tiny, and like, look at how square it is, like, it's super unique.
Like, it's
and then
dangerous?
at the same time, when you're on the inside, it's not dangerous. Why would that be dangerous? What part of what I just said danger to you?
Go-kart on the highway.
No, well, I'm not in a go-kart. We have a full cage around us. Come on. Look how huge this thing is. This dash you can play ping pong on.
Yeah, the ceiling is pretty spacious.
It's huge. We've got our luggage in the back, and it's not even like a little bit filled. We could have 4 people's luggage in here. And the people.
And the people.
I'm so happy in the K car, yeah. Driving so far in the K car. And so this car was able to take myself, my wife, our 2 huge luggage, and our 2 like carry-on smaller airplane style luggage, and our backpacks, and still would have had room to fit 2 more people's worth of stuff in the back. It was perfectly sized, and it kept up, and it was amazing the entire time. So, it was just fun. Unless you absolutely want to drive a bigger car, I would say get a K car if you're going to drive in Japan. Once we're in Japan to pick up our car, we headed down to the Nissan Rent-A-Car because they were the dealer that we ended up actually renting the car through with the Easy Rent Car website. And we went down, took our voucher, and make sure when you're getting your car, you tell them you want an ETC card. And the ETC card is a little debit card type deal that plugs into a little device in the vehicle. And what that does is it allows you to go through the ETC toll gates, which just saves you on time. So as you're pulling up to the toll gates, you slow down a little bit, the gate opens up, charges your card, and then you keep on driving. The card has like a $5 fee or a 500 yen fee on it. And then when you're done with your entire trip, you just turn it in and you pay Nissan or whoever your rental company is, however much you charged up on the entire trip. Quick sidebar, the convenience of being able to make a stop, leave all your luggage in the car, and just take your phone, your wallet, and your camera with you, and leave everything else in the car while you go explore something cannot be understated. When we've gone places in trains and you got to find a place or something to do with your luggage and then go see things, compared to stopping at Himeji Castle, parking, locking the car, and just walking on into Himeji Castle, night and day difference in our actual travel and enjoyment of being there. And sure, you spend a couple bucks to park, but we'll see in a minute that it's really not that expensive compared to taking the trains and everything. For this fall trip, we wanted to head west and see Kyushu. So we flew into Osaka and spent some time in Kyoto and then picked up our car. Then we had hotels in Hiroshima, Fukuoka, Kurokawa, Matsuyama, and finally back in Osaka. We also knew we wanted to stop to see Himeji Castle, Safari Land in Yamaguchi, Ainoshima Cat Island, Nanzoin with the Sleeping Buddha, Kumamoto with the beautiful castle that used to be there, and then stopping in Beppu and Kobe for some amazing Kobe beer. So let's get a little Top Gear Grand Tour with this and see if we can beat the Japanese transit system. Let's check out the different legs of our journey. Now, the one thing you're going to notice about this chart right off the bat is there was only one leg of our trip that was slower by car. Everything else was much faster. Now I know what you're thinking. Blaine, how can you be traveling faster than a train? You just told us you were in a teeny tiny K car. Who do you think you are? Triple X State of the Union catching up to the Bullet Maglev train?
How fast does she go? Let me know.
And no, I wasn't. That would have been cool though. But you'll notice that the only trip that we lost is an extremely long expanse. So it has a very high speed, very long railway that's able to get up to speed and stay ahead of us the entire time. For the entire rest of the trip, though, we're able to stick ahead of it. Plus, there's some buses in there that you can't really get to some of the cities without going by car and using the roads. And thanks to the fact that trains have to stop and buses have to stop, we're able to beat our theoretical competition by several hours. The other issue with taking transit in some of the places that we're at is just the complications. For example, let's travel from Hiroshima and make our stop in Safariland to check out the Red Pandas. With our car, we head out from our hotel and the amazing staff helps us load up. We jump in, wave goodbye, and head on up to the toll road and drive on down to Safariland. Pull in when we get there to park at the big free parking lot and head on in to hang out with some Red Pandas. How did we make it to the Red Pandas? Well, we actually use both our phone navigation as well as the in-dash navigation. Most of the in-dash navigation is going to be in English. You just have them set the language when you're picking up the car. And it's very straightforward, and the only thing you need to know is a little bit of katakana so you can read menu on the dashboard, and then you'll figure it out really easily from there. We mostly used our phones when the onboard dash wasn't able to find an address, so we'd find the address with our phones and then just plug it into the dash, and it would take us on its way. And it also tells you how much the tolls are going to cost, and will sometimes give you multiple selections, so you can pick, I want to pay half toll roads or full toll roads, or, I'll go the long way and avoid toll roads entirely. Pretty fantastic navigation system on all the rentals we've had. Now let's make that same trip using the transit system. So first we get out of our hotels and we roll our luggage out. We find the nearest bus stop that'll take us to Hiroshima Station. We get on the Shinkansen and head towards Shin Yamaguchi. We get off at Shin Yamaguchi and get on a bus that will take about an hour to get us all the way to Safariland. And I'm going to be completely honest, this bus is one of the hardest things I have ever tried to look up. And I'm not even 100% sure I know anything more than it's going to take an hour. The timetable was impossible to locate. It was just a huge pain to try to figure out what this travel is going to be like just to get there. And something like that could lead you to just not even go and miss an entirely awesome time to see Red Pandas. You love Red Pandas? And just look at the access instructions for Kurokawa Onsen. This is ridiculous. And the other thing this image doesn't show is that the JR train to and from Higo is probably not even running due to an earthquake. And luckily you can take a Sanko bus, and their website's pretty good. But remember, that bus is not going to be covered by that JR Rail Pass. And that's going to add cost to your trip and complication of having to figure out now the bus timetable. The next major route divergence we make is where we decided to take a ferry. So we get out of our hotel in Kurokawa and head on over to Beppu, board the ferry after enjoying some nice lunch and some steamer baskets, and just sit and enjoy ourselves while we wait for the ferry to get over there, and then have a beautiful coastal drive from where the ferry lands all the way to Matsuyama and their adorable mascot, Mikun. Our competition, on the other hand, is going to take a bus from Kurokawa over to Beppu, and then they're most likely going to get on a train and head all the way north and head on around, and then they're on the main island of Honshu, and then there's really no easy way for them to get there down to Matsuyama, so they're probably not going to get to stop and see Mikun and try his delicious orange juice. You might as well just take the train straight across over to Osaka. Stop in Kobe, stop somewhere else if you'd like to, but getting down to the island of Shikoku is going to be a little tough unless you take a bus across one of the many bridges there. All in all, you're going to spend about 23 hours in a car on that trip we just did, and that's including a ferry that takes over 2 hours. On the other hand, using the train system to make that exact same trip, you're looking at almost 30 hours. Let's talk a little bit about the price difference. We already mentioned that if you can keep your to and from Shinkansen trips within a span of 7 days, that it's going to be cheaper to use the JR Pass if you're going to be doing a lot of train riding. So we're going to be getting that to get started. So let's look at the train passes per person. We're going to start off with our train pass at $267. That's just JR trains, so that's not going to include any of those buses that we were talking about needing to take. And so in order to pay for all the buses to go all the places that we went, you're going to be looking at an extra $100 per person just in bus fees on top of the $267 that your JR Pass is already going to cost you. Now let's talk about the car. So we start out with the price of the car as well as our international driving permits, bringing us up to $293. Most of our hotels had parking on site and charged just a very small fee in order to park a car. So those charges all added up to about $70. A lot of the cities we went to actually had free parking, so that didn't really add up to a lot. Just another $30 went on that one. Next comes gas, which is super convenient to get in Japan. You just roll down your window, tell them Montan, and they fill it up with regular. Pay them, they send you on your way, and there's pit stops on every toll road, and there's pit stops literally everywhere. It's super easy to get gas and keep your car filled up. Each stop was just over $30 to fill up our tank, and we had a grand total of about $140 in order to go for our entire trip. And I do fill up at the end, and I pay for a car wash. You don't have to pay for a car wash, but I just feel like giving a car back clean is the right thing to do. Then we had our ferry trip, which was $121, which we could have skipped. We could have driven around and come down one of the bridges down into Shikoku, but it was just such a fun ferry ride. We really wanted to stay in Beppu and do some stuff there, so it just made sense to do that. Plus, the coastal road from the other side of the ferry to Matsuyama was just gorgeous, just a beautiful road to drive on. Lastly comes the tolls. And so we turn in our car when we're done with our trip. They scan the little ETC card and they give you a total and you pay them for your toll roads. That easy. And our toll roads on this trip were a total of $205. And I know what you're looking at. You're like, Blaine, you spent way more on a car. That's a lot more than $100. Let's remember this public transport number needs to get doubled because there's 2 of us on each of these trains or buses. Now, just imagine this car is big enough to easily and comfortably take 3 people. Probably even 4 people. If you've got a lot of people in your car, it becomes a lot cheaper to drive than it does to take the trains. You're just adding more and more ticket fees every single time you add another person. So when you can pile everybody into a vehicle, it just tanks that price, makes it a lot more convenient, and you can go kind of anywhere you want. And I know what you're thinking, like, Blaine, you got an K car. Those are tiny cars. You two probably barely fit in them. And I'm telling you, when I'm sitting in this thing driving, I cannot touch the roof with a flat hand. That's how big and roomy they are. Like, yeah, they've got a max size, X meters by X meters, but they max out what that size is so they can comply with the K standards and still give you a ton of room for luggage. So that's really it. In order to drive, we spent an extra $100, which really was just a ferry that we wanted to take, and we saved over 6 hours in travel time. That's half of a day that you could be spending doing stuff and seeing sights and eating food compared to just sitting on a train or a bus waiting to get to something cool. Not to mention that we don't have to haul our luggage around Himeji Castle or try and find a locker at the station that's big enough to hold our giant American suitcases, and even then we're going to need 4 or 5 of the stupid lockers so we can fit all of our stuff. Also, the smallest thing, getting to play your own music. Getting to talk in a nice little car. Getting to just stop when you see something. You're like, hey, that looks fun. Let's pull over and see if we can find some parking. It changes the entire dynamic of your trip when you drive. And it becomes such a more exciting and intimate experience, I feel, than just traveling by a train and getting from this city to this city to this city. So just remember, if you're going to stick to the cities and that's all you're going to see while you're in Japan, stick to the trains, stick to the buses. It is going to be more convenient for getting to and from places. And if you're going to be using the Shinkansen or the bullet train, keep it within 7-day windows so that you're using at least 2 trips every 7 days to make a JR pass worth it. Other than that, you're going to be better off paying for your own. And if you can, and if you want to, and if you're going to go someplace that's a little bit different, I recommend you rent a car. I hope this video was helpful in you determining whether or not you want to drive on your next trip to Japan. I know on a personal level, I just really like driving. So the experience of going down these winding mountain roads, this beautiful scenery, and getting to just turn and go wherever I want to is worth every extra yen. But that's just me. Leave me a comment down below if you've driven in Japan or you plan to after seeing this video, or hadn't even thought of it, and now that this popped up in your feed, you're like, you know what, maybe I will rent a car, even if it's just for a little bit, just to see what the experience is like. Or let me know if you think I'm insane for wanting to drive in Japan. Leave a like on this video and share it with any of your friends who may be planning a trip to Japan who may be interested in a little bit different form of transportation next time. See ya. You love red pandas? So do we! This is Cap. Cap is a kawaii kai panda. Don't at me about how they're called lesser pandas in Japan. There's nothing lesser about them! Cap is the mascot for our clothing line, Official Cap, where you can find Cap and all their friends on apparel designed by us. Sadly, red pandas are endangered, and their population is declining due to habitat loss and poaching. Who's poaching red pandas? So half of all our profits go to Red Panda Network to help save red pandas. Look good, do good. Every month there's an endangered design that'll only be available during that month, so don't miss out. Check it out now at officialcap.com and use our code BK10 to save 10% off your first order. Be sure to tag us on Instagram and use the hashtag OfficialCap so we can see how you style your Official Cap apparel. Thanks for helping us save our furry red panda friends.